Welcome to Beading with Machi Wapak Winyum. I'm your host, Lydia Sturby. So today we're going to make a beaded orange shirt pin, and so we're going to start. In your kit you would have had a template on a piece of stiffened felt already, and then you're going to have a piece of vinyl to go with it. We've got a baggie of beads, a little heart made out of beeswax, so if your thread starts to fray, you just rub it across your beeswax. This is the pin to go on the back. You'd have a bobbin of thread and your needle. So let's get started. You're going to take your thread and you're going to pull off a piece about from the tip of your middle finger, if you were to pinch it, and pull all the way across to your opposite shoulder. And that just gives us a good amount of thread so that we would have a good tail on there and still have enough to work with and not have to change it out right away. You could go longer, you could go shorter, it's whatever you're comfortable with. And then this method was taught to me by Janine Crouchy, who is a local Métis artisan here in Winnipeg, and she's done a lot of work. So I laid my string parallel, and then I'm just going to wrap it around. It doesn't matter if it's towards me or away from me. And I'm going to just take those wrappings and I'm going to slide them over the eye of the needle and all the way down the string. And it might be hard to tell on here, but right there, you can see that there's a whole bunch of knots in one spot, and that's exactly what you're looking for. Now, some people like to start with the edging and then fill it in. Some people like to do the orange and then wrap around the edge, and that's actually what I'm going to kind of do today. So I'm going to actually start just inside this black line, and I'm going to try to eyeball the middle of his shirt, or the shirt, if you will. Okay, and we're going to do a different kind of method than maybe you're used to. There's many different ways to do it, so I'm going to show you the 4-bead infinity loop method, and then I'm going to show you one string all at the same time. So if you wanted, you could start with 4 beads and you're going to slide them all the way down. Make sure they're right to where it came out. I'm holding it tight, the string tight with my left hand, and then I'm going to go back through the picture and the felt. But you can see that this is still, if I just put a little pressure on it, it kind of comes apart. So to make that more secure, I'm going to come up between beads 2 and 3, and then I'm going to go through the holes of bead 3 and 4. I'm not going through the felt, just through the bead hole. So now you can see I'm coming out the end, and what that does is it allows me to continue on my row. Okay, so and then we're just gonna keep repeating that in the shape that we want. So right now I'm gonna put 4 more orange beads on. Okay. I'm gonna line it up because again, I wanna try to keep my line as straight as I can. And I'm gonna let gravity pull them all the way down to meet up with the other ones. And I'm gonna go through the end, through my felt and my picture and my felt. And then I'm going to come back up through beads 2 and 3, kind of between them. Okay, and then I'm going to stick my needle out through 3 and 4. Okay, and I'm going to do that till I get to the very top of the row, and then I'm going to show you another method on how you could do this. Now you can see that doing my 4 brings me into the collar of the shirt, and now so you have to decide if you want your white outside to go through the collar or on the black line like it would follow the rest of it. So I'm going to let it go my orange go through the collar because I'm going to use my white along the outside black edge. Okay, this time, instead of coming up between 2 and 3 and going out the beads 3 and 4, I'm coming up on the right side of 2 and 3, and I'm going to go down on the left side of beads 2 and 3. And so what that's going to do is it's actually going to do what we call tacking down. So it's going to tack down the string inside those beads so it's not going to move. And now I'm just kind of playing to make sure my line is somewhat straight there. Now there's another way to do this to make sure your line is going to be as straight as it can be. You're going to come up at the top again, and you're going to push your needle through the whole row so that you have one single string that connects all of it. And if your needle is not long enough to do the whole row in one step, you can see I made it about that far. I'm going to pull my string through, and then I'm just going to sneak back in there and finish off my row. And what this is going to do is it's going to give one solid straight line a little bit better than how we were going 4 beads at a time and trying our best to keep it straight. So now if I pull, it just wants to keep it a little bit straighter. And now I'll go down at the very end of that row. Now to secure each row, you can do this. You're going to pick up a little bit of the felt with your needle. And in the loop that creates here, you can see we've got a little loop going on. Put your needle through it once, twice, and that's going to make 2 knots in the same place at the very end of your line. And that's just going to keep your row even more secure. You're not going to lose tension on it. Now, to do the very next row, you're going to come up, and if you decide you want to go to the left side or right side, that's up to you. We're going to do this one in a different way though. So this time I'm going to put all my orange beads on at once to fill the entire row. So I'll put a bunch on and then I'll measure to see how many more will fit. And then we'll keep going here. Okay, sorry, here we go. So we're going to continue on adding some orange beads to our row. And we'll just see how far we get in here. Okay, it should be about the same as what you added the first time, because our row hasn't quite changed that much. So I probably need another 4 or 5 here. Let's try 5. And if we find that it goes over the line, we'll just take one off. See? Okay, so if I push them down, we're going to see that's a little bit taller than where I want it. So I'm going to take one off. I'm going to let gravity pull them down so that they're as low as they're going to go. And then I'm going to just poke through the felt at the end of my row and we'll see. So again, we're going to have this floppy thing unless we start tacking it down. So just like we did on the very last one there, we're going to come up between 2 beads on one side and then go down on the other side. Now you could do that every 2 or 3 beads. That would be ideal to keep it nice and secure. So that's what we're going to do. And there we go. So I've just finished another row. So at this point, I'm going to continue going up and down through here. And you're going to see the shirt kind of flares out at the bottom. I just generally stop it wherever my straight line goes. And then you can do the shirt sleeves going at an angle, and then that makes it look a little bit better. So you're going to see, I'm going to kind of speed it up a bit here, and you'll see the difference. Okay, so I'm just getting to the end of what is my 5th row here. You can see I kind of tried to follow the top part shape of the shirt and the bottom shape of the shirt. But you can see this little flare that I kind of mentioned. It kind of goes at an angle there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to secure my row, picking up some felt, and then I'm going to go through my loop twice. And anytime you need to cut your string, like, because it's getting too short, I would do this 2 times. So I'll just show you. So now I've picked up some of that knot that I just made, and I'm going to do this. And now I'm free to just cut my string if I need it. I still have some string on this one, so I'm going to let it go for now. I'm not too worried about filling in this little gap here. In fact, I'm going to move all the way up, and I'm just going to stretch my needle all the way to the armpit of the shirt. And I'm going to start working my shirt sleeve at an angle. So I'll pick up a couple, measure if it's long enough, and go from there. Again, I'm filling in where the white is because I'm using the black as my exterior line for measuring. So if I put one more bead there, it would probably be too much. So I'm only putting like 3 in the armpit of the sleeve here. And I'm still going to go tack it down at least once somewhere in there. Even though there's only 3 beads on there, you just want to make sure it's nice and secure. Okay, and I usually go from the shirt side to the end of the sleeve because you don't want to have a gap. If you started here and worked your way that way, you might have a gap between where the beads start and stop, and it's easier to have a gap on the outside than on the inside. Okay, because you can kind of fiddle with the edging. So there's 4 beads in that one. I feel like it usually goes up 1 bead at a time, but depending on the size of your bead and if you have a wonky bead somewhere in there. Now remember, if you feel like your project is too perfect, put in a spirit bead, a bead of another color in the wrong spot kind of a thing. And what that does is it helps keep you humble because nothing is perfect. No one is perfect except for the creator. So some artisans use it kind of as their calling card as to what kind of a color bead or where they're going to put it, but you put it wherever you feel like it. In the sleeve, on an edge. Again, if you feel like your project isn't perfect because you feel like it's got some gaps or some wonky lines or things like that, then maybe you don't want to put a spirit bead in. That is your choice. Okay, so we're getting there. So you can see again, my shirt is at kind of an angle. Straight this between these 2 beads. I think that would work better there. Yeah, and then I'm going to do another one on this side. Okay, so we're going to do at least 1 more and play it by ear. And if you go outside the pattern, that's totally fine. The pattern's there just as a guide to help you kind of get the basic shape of it. You could just draw the shape of a t-shirt on some stiffened felt. That would work too. You can see if I do this, I kind of have filled in the shirt just like that. Now, I feel like my lines aren't lining up quite like I would normally have it, so I'm going to just take an extra bead and pop them in his shoulder. And that way when I do my outline around this, there won't be such a gap in here. Okay, now I'm going to secure my line, and then I'm going to go do the other side of my shirt. Okay, so we've got the right side done. Now I'm just going to turn my project upside down, and I'm going to work my way up and down here, and do the shirt, and I will be back. Okay, so I've just finished up my second shoulder here, and I'm looking at it and I'm trying to see how things line up and if I'm happy with everything the way it is, or if I feel like I need to shift anything. And I'm okay with the way it is. And because I've got this wonky shoulder bead, that's going to kind of be my spirit bead. So it's not the wrong color, it's just not in the normal place in the pattern. So I'm going to close off this thread because it's definitely not long enough to do my outside in, like my edging in. So I'm just going to close it up by doing my double knot twice. Anytime I'm going to cut it, double knot twice. That's just my safety feature. Don't want it to fall apart. And you can see I've given you way more orange than you need, and that's okay. So at this point, I'm going to grab a set of needle nose pliers, and I'm going to take the staples out because the staples are just there to keep your pattern from shifting while you're beading. But really, after I had done the majority of the shirt, I probably could have just taken them out. But at this point, we're going to take them out. And the next thing we're going to do is start peeling away the extra paper. I've heard of people who spray it with water so that it loosens more easily. But as you can see, the paper rips quite nice because when you go through it so many times with the needle, it like makes perforations. Now you might find that you've got some pieces in the edges here, and you can use a pair of tweezers or your pliers to help you with that. So I'm just gonna take out a couple of these extra pieces that I'm not too happy about here. And if you can help it, try to pull away from your project, because if you pull too hard up and down, you might undo some of the thread or pull some of the thread and make it loose, and that's not what you want after you've worked so hard. You can see I'm folding back some of my felt here so I can get at some of that paper a little bit better. Okay, so I'm kind of happy with that now. Of course, it's making it a little bit harder for you to see my beads on my felt, but I'm going to very carefully cut my felt away from my pattern. And you want to make sure you're not going to cut any of your strings back here. So I came very close to getting this armpit string, but I didn't. Because if you start cutting strings at the back, you might start losing some beads. So just do it very cautiously. If you have to look at it going back and forth, then do that, because that's going to be very important for you. Okay, so here we go. And I'm just going to make my way around. Oops. And you can leave a little bit of an edge on there. That's totally okay. It'll end up helping you with your actual edging piece. I'm going to switch this way because I got a cut on this side. So now I'm going to line up my shirt. And so some people prefer taking a pen and kind of tracing it. And then you can just cut out what you've traced. Because if you just line them up and start cutting and it shifts while you're cutting with the actual piece on here, you're going to have a heck of a time trying to fix that, because once it's cut, right? So just going to take off my extra pieces by following what I've drawn here. Remembering to cut right on the line, not outside the line, because the line itself is already outside your project, because you're tracing the edge of it. So you can see I've done that. I'm going to get rid of some of these scraps. Now I'm going to put it back on and I'm going to double check it. Yeah, I kind of thought I had followed a line silly here, but let's see what I got. I need to remove a little bit more of this right side, I think. Sorry, I went off camera maybe there for a bit. Okay, I'm a little bit happier with the shape now that I've got here. I'll get rid of some of this garbage. Now the next part is, at least this is an easy shape. It's a t-shirt. You're going to be able to see which direction it has to go. When you're doing poppies and flowers and stuff, you need to be a little bit more careful about how you take it off. Because this is a very close, we could put it at the top like this, or we can put it in here up and down. I'm actually going to go up and down because it gives me a little bit more room to put this in. And I'm going to mark just to the left of the spring and just to the right of where the safety pin goes. So that when I fold this over, those two little black lines are now my guide. But I want to be in half, and so I don't actually want to cut there because I want this to be in the middle. So I'm going to kind of cut along that center crease. And it doesn't need to be big because it's actually going to be doubled. And so I want my safety piece at the top. So what that means is I'm actually going to put my needle through the top right now from this side. I'm going to rotate it to get that piece through, and then I'm going to slide this. And that way I don't have to try to shove the safety pin piece through here. Then I'll put the needle through the bottom and make sure that this whole piece comes out. Now I slide this up so that the second half of my needle doesn't get stuck under there. Okay, and I find that that is quite secure. Otherwise, if you don't pull out the smaller piece of the needle here that gives it its spring, if you keep that inside the shirt, it just won't open up as much. So it's not wrong. You just might not get as much leverage out of it. Now you could try and sew that in place, like that's not the end of the world. I like to use a little E6000 glue across here, just across the needle or pin. And then I'm going to place my shirt on top. And so what that's going to do is it's going to keep this as the most secure piece of my project. Okay. And now we're ready to start the edging. So you're going to get yourself a new piece of string. Again, I like to do that from the tip of one arm to the opposite shoulder. You can. And from there, you're going to thread your needle. And this time I'm going to show you a different way to do multiple knots in one spot. I don't even remember who taught me this. It was just more recently. But this time I'm going to just loop my string over my needle and hold it. And then holding the strings of the eye, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to slide that down my needle. So it's very similar, but some people are telling me that this way is a little bit easier. Okay. Now, I prefer when you're coming in the middle, because we want to hide our knot, I prefer to go from the middle to the back to start. And then I'm just going to tuck my end inside here so it's not seen. And I tend to work clockwise. And my edging, I want it to be white, so I'm going to start with a white bead. And I'm going to go through here. And so I've gone through both layers now. I'm coming out the front felt. And I'm going to go back through that bead from the right side. And that's important because otherwise my bead won't lay flat like a donut on a plate. It'll try and stick up like a tire. Okay, let's do that again. So bead, back to front, through the right side and up. As you get to your second bead, it's a little bit more obvious which way is the bottom and the top of your bead, or the left and right. Bead, back to front, and up. And you're going to do that all the way around your project until you get back to the very beginning bead. Now, if you wanted to make it fancy, I'm not going to completely do this, but if you wanted to make it fancy, you would go through 2 beads. So I'm going to show you with an orange bead, which was the first one I put on, then the white bead is the second bead I put on. And it would make the first bead you put on stick up like a tire, and the second bead you would go through it just like you did before, and you would come back through just the second bead. But I don't want to change my pattern now that I've started mine. So that one is called a zipper stitch if you wanted to do it. I'm just going to pull it out because I don't want an orange bead in the middle of mine. I just want them just white beads around the edge. But if you wanted to get all fancy, you totally could. And you could do that all the way around your project as well, and it would look just as nice. So I've got just my white bead. I'm going through, pulling, and come back through this bead. Okay, I'm going to speed it up now as I continue around my project. And as you go through the armpit, you're just going to have to make a call how many fit around here and just keep on going. Okay, so here I am. I'm about to put on my last white bead because I've got just this little gap left to fill. So I'm going to put him in just like normal. And now I want to connect these two beads. So I'm going to come down the very first bead I put on and come out the leather or vinyl that I've got and squeeze them into that slot. And now, just like we wanted to tie off before, you're going to pick up a little bit of the vinyl, make your loop, go through it twice. Oh, I went through it once. Go through it once and then twice. There we go. I've got 2 strings. There we go. My tail. And now when I cut it this time, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to leave a little bit of an edge like I did before. This time I'm going to burn it. And then I use the metal to kind of squish it. And that's going to actually melt it so the knot won't come undone. And that is your Orange Shirt Day pin. Thank you for joining me today. Merci, miigwech. I hope you have a great day. Bye.